Hey there, Eli coming at you again from OSA Coventry here today in front of these beautiful little Siamese algae eaters here. These are one of my favorite additions to add to most freshwater aquariums, especially when we get into the topic of freshwater planted aquariums like we've been covering so recently. So these fellas don't really resemble most of your other algae eating fish. They don't really resemble your plecos with those inferior sucker type mouths on the bottom of their body. They don't really look like the Chinese algae eaters that have kind of a similar appearance. These are really a member of that carp family. These are cyprinid fish, so they're cousins of barbs, carp, and they definitely do resemble that in appearance. They really look more like an unassuming barb than anything else, kind of resembling maybe your Denison barb, roseline shark, that sort of fish. However, these guys are really adept at eating especially filamentous algae, so oftentimes in a planted aquarium we run into nuisance algae such as just hair algae or black bearded algae, and these are one of the only fish that I know that can really clean a tank out of these in just about no time flat. For reference, both of these pieces of driftwood that are in this tank currently were both heavily infested with blackbeard algae before we placed them into this tank. And honestly, within a couple hours time, this entire batch of fish went to town cleaning this rock off and have cleaned it of just about every spot of blackbeard that was on those pieces of driftwood. But as far as the freshwater hobby goes, these are one of the only fish that I really know that is so good at cleaning up the blackbeard algae. For this reason, especially in a larger planted aquarium, it does make sense to add a school of these. They do typically get along quite well in a small group, maybe 5, 6, 7, somewhere in that range. And as long as you have the space for them, these guys will be really active throughout the day, trying to clean up any of your rocks, any of your driftwood, and the leaves of your plants, and cleaning the algae off of them. And if they do run out of algae, they tend to really like algae wafers, but they are not very picky about their diet. They do eat flake food, pellet food, frozen food. They are pretty much an omnivore around the board, so they're not very difficult to keep fed. However, I would make sure if there's not much algae in the tank, that you do supplement weekly or bi-weekly with some algae wafers or a quality pellet that's got a good concentration of algae matter in it, so that these guys are getting that proper algae nutrition that they deserve. As cyprinid fish, oftentimes these guys will do well in a cooler aquarium as well. They don't necessarily need those tropical temperatures that we keep most of our aquariums at. They would do well in the lower 70s as well if you do have a cooler aquarium. However, they do quite well at the typical warm temperatures that we keep most of our tanks at. Like I mentioned earlier, these do really well in groups, and I have even seen them in tanks with Denison barbs side by side, to where these guys actually will sometimes school in with the Denison barbs, which is just kind of a cool appearance as they're cruising the tank. But generally, these guys occupy more of the bottom half of the tank, where those barbs would be more mid-column to top swimming. So sometimes you'll get that behavior out of them, but not always in every setting. These are a little bit of a larger algae-eating fish, so it's definitely important to keep their max size in mind. I have seen these fish get about 5, almost 6 inches full grown. Although it does take them a while to get that large, you definitely don't want to be cramming, say, a 20-gallon tank with a bunch of these fish just to keep it clean, because they will definitely outgrow that tank in a short time period. Also worth consideration is these guys can be jumpers. They're not the most prolific jumper that I've ever met in the aquarium scene. However, it is possible that these guys will jump from your aquarium, so definitely having a decent lid is important to making sure that these stay in the tank, as they are prone to spooking pretty easily. For the most part, these fish are also compatible with most of your peaceful community fish, and I have even seen them with some of your less aggressive cichlids, some of your South American cichlids, severums, and things of that nature that aren't terribly aggressive. They tend to do okay in that sort of grouping as well. However, I don't know if I would necessarily try putting these with African cichlids or some of your more aggressive larger cichlids, as they probably will end up being snacks down the road. But overall, Siamese Algae Eaters are one of my favorite cleanup crew members for the freshwater aquarium, especially for a nice, crowded, planted aquarium. They do quite a good job, again, at taking care of filamentous algae, those hair algae, blackbeard algae, and they do make quite quick work of that. As always, thank you guys for tuning in. Let us know in the comment section below if you have questions, maybe suggestions for future videos, and as always, keep it fishy.